okay, to share with us their feelings. May we invite Dr. Kuan and Professor Ming. Okay. And as we were discussing earlier, Dr. Go and Professor Sik, okay, what are your professional views on communications? May we begin with, say, Dr. Go?
Alright, so I'd like all of you to imagine that you just received the report card and you got A for every single subject except a B in geography. Your Asian father expects every single grade to be an A, which obviously you didn't meet. So he decided to talk about his past. Every day he walked 20 miles to school, uphill, both ways, 26 hours a day, and on one foot with his other foot selling rice. He then talked on and on, such as fighting 2 lions on his way to school. With all this, you want to tell him why he got such a bad grade for geography. Which is why this brings me to my topic, giving everyone here a chance to speak. There are 3 important reasons to giving everyone a chance to speak. They are impression building, learning effectively, and approachability. I would like to start with impression building. Impression building relates to building actually the first impression. Now the first impression is important because you want to build the reputation. If you are a person that talks too much, then you are talking compulsively. Talking compulsively only damages other people's what they think of you, which is your reputation. Then people may not become your friends or they avoid conversations with you. Now let's talk about approachability. This time you are more self-conscious. You decided to let everyone here have a chance to speak. Now this makes everyone here feel that you're truly concerned about attaining the understanding of the conversation. Everyone has a chance to ask questions and perceive one another's doubts, and from there build on the conversation and learn better. From there, people have a higher chance to strike new conversations with you. Now that brings me to my last point, learning effectively. Well, since everyone has a higher chance to strike new conversations with you, then you still need to let them have a chance to speak. Because I may know some things you don't, you may know some things I don't. Not everyone here knows everything. So giving others a chance to speak allows them to voice out doubts and concerns that allow everyone to build on that understanding. Give everyone a chance to speak and your conversations will become more meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Go. Well, that was some very, very useful advice. And how about Professor Sik today? What are your views?
Oh, good day everyone. My name is Ming, and today I will be sharing about non-verbal communication. Before I start, let me ask all of you here a question. How often do you notice the other party's body language when you talk to them? If you do, then you are a pretty observant person. However, if you do not, then I guarantee that you were just not consciously aware of it. Why am I talking about body language though? This is because body language is one of the most common forms of non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is something we usually do every day, unconsciously. And it's as important as verbal communication. For example, frequent fidgeting with your hands on stage can show a sign of nervousness. Or something as simple as nodding your head in a conversation can show acknowledgement or even understanding. All of these gestures can show you how one is feeling at that point of time and can be conveyed as a message to the other party. Without such body language, it will be quite hard to successfully decipher what the other person is trying to say, especially since words can be taken in another way as well, which all of you should be familiar with, sarcasm. For example, if someone is over-dramatically smiling and gesturing while telling you sugary sweet words, then obviously they are being sarcastic. However, without those smiles or gestures, it is quite impossible to actually tell that they are being sarcastic just through verbal communication. Well, the next point is body language can also show hidden feelings from the other person. For example, by deciphering someone is lying by identifying their signs of nervousness and uncertainty through their body language. These signs will be almost impossible to spot without body language. In conclusion, non-verbal communication or body language is incredibly important for conversations in our daily lives. It can have real meanings of what we presented, the realities to be exposed, and the truth feelings of another person to be let out. And here, I conclude my brief presentation. I hope all of you have learned a little bit more about nonverbal communication during my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sik. And now we have some questions for both of you, starting with Dr. Goh. Okay. So why do you think we have conversations in the first place?
Well, firstly, we have conversations in the first place is to build impressions and relationships. And also conversations can also be used to learn new things.
I see. So you mentioned talking compulsively, right? So
Yes.
what are some ways to stop talking compulsively?
For starters, you can observe two things: eye contact and replies. If there's little eye contact and one-word replies, then you're talking compulsively. So one suggestion for you is to actually ask questions to level up the conversation.
Okay, thank you. That's very useful. And for Dr. Sik, so how do you think non-verbal actions affect communication?
Non-verbal actions can either reinforce, strengthen, or contradict the verbal messages. Can affect the verbal message in a way that can either be with or against the giver's wishes. This can have a very big impact on the message that is received by the other party. As can be taken the other way around if you're having some weird non-verbal actions and the other party may think you're mocking them, for example. Yeah.
I see. So what do you think is the most important non-verbal communication?
In my honest opinion, the most important non-verbal communication, is actually eye contact. Eye contact can be used to express a variety of emotions: anger, sadness, surprise, so many different emotions. But more importantly, can show if they have interest in the conversation. Why is this important, you may ask? Interest in the conversation is essential when having a conversation, because if there is no interest by the other party in that conversation, then what is the point of even having the conversation? I ask. So, identifying that the other party has interest in the conversation itself is critical. So you can either choose to let them bring their attention back to the conversation or just stop the conversation as a whole. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Sik. Very, very important points to note. Thank you. Next, we shall open the question to the floor. Do you have any questions from the audience?
I have one question for Professor Sik. So how can people improve on using their non-verbal communication to more effectively convey their message?
Dr. Sik?
I'm sorry, I did not catch your question. Could you repeat it again?
Okay, so how can people improve on using their non-verbal communication to more effectively convey their messages?
You can try to make meaningful gestures with your body. Not too frequently, but enough to let the receiver know that you're actually interested in the conversation. As I mentioned before, interest is very, very critical in a conversation. So these gestures will also nicely complement what if your conversation, or else conversation will just become bonkers and the receiver will not even understand what you're trying to convey to them, as these signals will be very mixed. So by having gestures that complement the conversation is also good. So yes.
Thank you, Professor Sik. And any other questions for Dr. Goh, maybe?
Yep. Can I ask, how does learning effectively really relate to further building relationships?
Alright, so for learning effectively, we learn effectively through conversations. And when we have conversations with other people, we're actually showing the favorable side of yourself. You don't talk with the people with a nasty voice that only damages your reputation. So through conversations, people understand who are you and understand who are you as a person. And from there, you're building your better social image and a better brand of yourself. So that's answer your question.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Goh. And with that, I believe we're out of time for today's